At this point, you should have built your insourcing proposal. It will help inform your outsourcing proposal. So really, it's worth spending the time doing that. Don't just plow through these videos. Spend the time, pause this, come back to it if you need to, and at least give us the initial stuff here. Now, notice I didn't do super fancy formatting. I could very easily come through and put heading 3, heading 4, stuff like that inside of here to improve this. I'm leaving that sort of stuff to you. I'm just trying to give you the content, but you should be doing those pieces. All right, so the outsourcing proposal is going to follow much the same format. We need to start with the description. And this is where there's going to be some variance. So the outsourcing option here is 2. So what is it? You might have to do a little bit of research. You might have to go through and see what is out there in the marketplace. So I'm going to say use the ACME inventory management system, which allows a user to store blah, 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 blah. Again, your description. What I want to see is, how does this solve my problem? I want to see, how does this meet the requirements that you wrote? And more specifically, how does it not meet all of the requirements, but finds another way to meet some of the requirements? Okay? I want to see that gap. Because if it meets all the requirements, you probably can buy it and implement it very simply. If everything does exactly what you want it to do, you probably don't need to build something yourself. There's occasionally reasons you would, because maybe it's a crappy implementation. Maybe it doesn't. It probably doesn't meet the requirements at that point. But there's occasionally. But normally, if it's, hey, this does everything I need to do, why would I build something else? I've had that before. I've started to build an application. I'm like, I wonder how I would solve this. And I go to search. I'm like, wow, somebody built this whole thing already. Why am I building it? I didn't. I moved it over. So again, this description should be showing, I'll use the fancy word, the dissonance between the desired requirements and its implementation. That's that gap that lives inside of there. And that's what you want to say. What's your alternative source, and what's that gap in requirements? Because there probably is some inside of there. And then, again, you're doing much the same. The work overview. So your requirements view probably is much the same. So the time-wise, but probably what's going to be different inside of there is you have your base requirements, which might be your 3 weeks, and then your gap analysis, which could actually end up being longer, another 3 weeks. You want to make sure this tool meets your needs. It's okay at that point. The design phase then probably is your architecture work. So your architecture work, and maybe there's only 2 weeks of architecture, and then certainly probably less design. So maybe you only have 2 weeks of design, because there's less stuff to be of design. There's less stuff to be done there. The coding is going to be way different. So this is where you're going to have a lot of details inside of here. The implementation is going to have to be basically stuff like a prototype test. Maybe that's going to be 2 weeks. And then installation, not installation, yes, easy for me to say. INST. Installation. There you go. Installation in dev environment to play that out. So maybe that's going to be a week to get it done in test. A configuration, and so maybe that's going to be 2 weeks of config inside of there. Now notice it's probably way less time, but you need to point out what these steps are. Then you're testing, so you probably don't have unit testing going on. There might be integration, there might not, depends. Your system test probably going to be the same, performance test is the same, unit acceptance test is going to be the same. So most of the rest is going to be the same. Your release might very well be the same. So the outsourcing proposal is probably going to be a couple small extra things, specifically the gap analysis, making sure things are installed and everything else like that. Much less work, different tasks. But then what really shows up is this analysis at the end. So the idea is you want to sum up and say, okay, this solution allows us to store stuff with pictures, but does not have the ability to connect to eBay to get comparative pricing and sell items. Okay, so there's our gap. Maybe there's more gaps based off our gap analysis, but we know up front, based off of the product list and the requirements, what's the gap. So yes, we can build this for a fraction of the cost, but if competitively without the eBay link, our product is useless, then maybe this isn't the best choice, or at least it's not as useful. If all of a sudden now the only way we get eBay, because maybe we're using this internally, is to have somebody run around and do the pulling of this stuff ourselves, and let's say it's my application and the whole thing is I don't want to have to spend hours trolling eBay to find similar items, well, this might be a killer for me. I might not want to do this business without this feature. This could be everything out there. Now, that gap probably leads you to the hybrid proposal. So the hybrid proposal is probably something along the lines of we start with the outsourcing solution but add on these features to make it closer aligned to the requirements. And so what are those features? An eBay plugin, reporting feature, custom authentication pieces, whatever it's going to be. And then again, our work overview is now probably a lot the same of this, plus some of the stuff from our insourcing proposal up here. So we would have, and I'll go ahead and copy this over, our work overview, and we bring this down to our hybrid proposal. And we come up here, and we would say the requirements was going to be much the same. We still have to do the gap analysis, but then we have the gap fillers, which might be 1 week of work here. And then instead of 2 weeks design, we have 5 weeks of design again. And then implementation, we have the prototype, install, configuration, and then we know we have to build eBay module, and then other custom stuff that has to be done. And then we assess the times and stuff on this. And again, we come up with a final number like we did up here. I didn't add it in here, but we still need to come up with total effort here. Pros and cons. That should be showing up here. That should be showing up as our outsourcing proposal. So we should be writing that. And then we should have our hybrid proposal. Also has pros and cons. And then when we get the recommendation, we have this plate of information. We have all the data that's gone up. This is the way an academic paper should be structured. We have our research methods, we have a results, which is all the data we got from executing our research methods, and then we have our discussion, which tells us what we think. And so at this point, we can come up and say, let me come back here. Based on our data, we recommend we do the X solution. Maybe the hybrid, maybe the custom build. But you choose. You should be choosing based off the data. In comparison, we can see. Maybe we'll do a table here. It's up to you how you want to present this data, but a table is normally very nice. We can say the feature, and so we can talk about the cost, and then we can talk about the 3 different solutions. So we have the in-source, outsource, and the hybrid. And so what's the cost inside of each of these? So we have a $ that goes on this, or maybe a week's or level of effort. And then we could have whatever other measures you think are important. So you could say, why is this not going to that? Okay, there you go. Alignment with requirements. You can break it 1 to 10. So maybe this is a 10. Maybe this is a 5 or 6, we'll say, and this is an 8 inside of there. We could say security. We could rank those sorts of things. So you could do this a bit quantitatively. I've seen it done where people actually weight these. And so we say the cost, and you could say which one's desirable 10 is the cheapest and 1 is the most expensive or something like that, or then you could weight it. So cost is 75% of the decision we're making. The alignment with the requirements is 30% of the decision we're making. I'm sorry, the net up 20% of the decision, then security is 5%. You can get as formal or informal with this as you want to, but again, you want to make the case. Summarize and then make the case. Often you'll start with hey, we think this. You don't tell me the story. This isn't I started with this, then I found out this, and then I went to grandma's house, and then she sent me across the street. That's what we want to see. I want to see the data. I want to see your bottom line, and then I want to see the justification for your bottom line. So given this comparison side by side, you can see that the hybrid solution is more expensive than the outsourcing solution, but it meets most of the requirements and has acceptable security, the same as our insourcing would be, and so that's the one I want to do. And again, I'm showing you three features, but you might have 7 features. It's up to you to make your case. The assignment's asking for 2 to 3 pages. You don't have to be crazy. I've done right here 1, 2, starting out on my 3rd page right there. So it doesn't have to be a massive, massive document to be able to justify this. But we do want to see data. We want to see support. We want to see you making the case. So there you go. Go off and make your case. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with for your projects. And then we will be ready to build them, right? Most of our plan will be done. And we'll wrap it up next week, and we'll be good to go from there.